Working as an FBI special agent was my dream job. My whistleblowing was apolitical and in the spirit of upholding my oath. Nonetheless, the FBI cynically elected to close ranks and attack the messenger.
The FBI will crush you. This government will crush you and your family if you try to expose the truth about things that they are doing that are wrong. We are all examples of that.
Joining us now are Steve Friend and Garrett O'Boyle. Thanks for joining us, fellas.
FBI whistleblowers Steve Friend and Garrett O'Boyle both join us now. Gentlemen, so glad to have you on the program. Thank you for your testimony.
We need more folks like you, and I'm sure more people are going to be, from your background, are going to be giving you guys more intel as you're sharing that with the rest of us. We can kind of see that this is becoming normal for them to be held accountable, because I think especially an institution that we pay their salaries, they need to be held accountable.
I think a lot of people do share our beliefs and convictions. I think they just aren't at the point that Steve and I and others have gotten to. They're too afraid.
Thank you so much for being a guest here on PBD Podcast.
Thanks for having us.
How big is that bloody flag that Steve's got? It's the stole wall of his house. Lots of love, guys. Thanks very much for joining us.
Steve Friend, Garrett O'Boyle. Thank you for being with us this morning. More importantly, thank you for speaking out. We appreciate it.
You're in the information age, but facts are in short supply. Reject the noise, ask bold questions, and pursue the truth with FBI whistleblowers and founding suspendables Garrett O'Boyle and Steve Friend. This is the American Radicals Podcast.
It is the American Radicals Podcast on a Thursday, 10:30 on the Eastern Seaboard, coming to you live on rumble.com/amradpod. I see you in the chat, guys. If you haven't already, smash the thumbs up and give us a follow here on this channel. We're trying to grow. Definitely subscribe to the audio format on iTunes and Spotify and iHeart, which we will drop on Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, 10:30 Eastern time. Today is going to be spicy, which is kind of ironic because it's entitled Tasteless. We're going to be doing a deep dive into an FBI case, an investigation into an organization called One Taste, which is also kind of ironic and funny because the FBI is sort of a self-licking ice cream cone. Why does an ice cream cone need a tongue? Why does a tongue need an ice cream cone? Just to justify its existence. And I don't think the self-licking ice cream cone has actual taste buds on it. We're going to also talk about federal employees who are currently employed like Garrett, but unlike Garrett, who are receiving a paycheck, who are also receiving unemployment benefits. They're going to be cracking down on some SNAP, those are food stamp benefits fraud going on. And then another deep dive on a bizarre story about a sitting U.S. congressman who might be misrepresenting his religion as well as being an arms dealer in the Middle East. So a lot to get to today. It's going to be really interesting, very spicy, like I said. But before we do, let's thank our sponsor for the day, and that is the OG sponsor of the American Radicals Podcast, and that is the True Earth Pharmacy. Guys, go to trueearth.co, trueearth.co. And look, I will implore you, go and do this. This is a company that is dedicated to personal individual health as well as the health of your garden, because this is a guy who had a cancer scare in the family and retooled his entire world to develop the technology in order to grow food and supplements in order to make his wife healthy. And thanks be to God, she beat cancer. So I encourage you guys to go and just check it out. trueearth.co. Get a garden. You want to check out the fertilizer supplements that they have there. If you just want to get healthy, you want to feel a little bit better, not have as much pain. I am not a good responder to most supplements, but I have been on the turmeric for over a year now. And let me tell you, it really works. There was a point where I ran out and I thought, I'm probably okay. It'll be all right. Within a week, pain returned. Had to go back on the turmeric trio. And now, a couple days later, I'm feeling excellent. Give it a try, trueearth.co. You can use the promo code AMRAD25 to get 10% off everything in the entire store there. All right, let's get to the Tasteless episode 208 of the American Radicals Podcast. And in order to do that, we need to bring on Garrett O'Boyle, my co-host, my compadre. At GOB Actual is where you find him, if you can find him at all on social media, because apparently there's something going on with the algorithms, but that's probably a conversation for another day. How you doing, my friend? I see the hoodie and I'm thinking it's Got to be a tough one.
It's actually really nice out today, but the mornings, even though it's like mid-morning, it's the sun's taking a little bit of time to warm things up a little bit, but definitely warmer than it was yesterday. So the hoodie will be shed probably as soon as we wrap up.
All right, excellent. All right, I want to get to this one because it's a couple different pieces, and it has gone on for now. It looks like a year and a half, and it's an FBI case. And we've dug into them. We've done episodes where we break down sort of the way that they manipulate, taking local police work and taking it on. Another element is the salacious element. They want to go for the big bang. So let's build this up. And I don't know if it's eluded your attention or maybe the audience's attention. We need to do sort of a deep dive, and we'll go to the Eastern District of New York, which was the same office from the United States Attorney who charged Douglas Mackey for, I don't know, liking a tweet about Hillary Clinton or something. All right. The press release comes from June 6th, 2023. And the
almost
company,
2 years ago.
the company's called One Taste. So the One Taste founder and former head of sales were indicted for forced labor conspiracy.
That sounds bad.
So our bad guys are actually bad girls here.
Oh, no.
Last names are Dadone and Cherwitz. According to the Department of Justice, according to the U.S. Attorney's Office, they intentionally targeted for recruitment to One Taste, which was their company, individuals who had suffered trauma and advertised that One Taste courses and teachings could heal past sexual trauma and dysfunction. Members could not, if they couldn't afford the courses, which range from hundreds to tens of thousands of dollars, which Dadone and Sherwitz induced members to incur debt in order to actually do it. They were doing the hard sell. They directly assisted One Taste members in opening new credit cards to pay for these courses. It begins to sound, at least according to the Department of Justice and the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Eastern District of New York, like a cult. They go further. They subjected these individuals, these subjects, the One Taste members to constant surveillance in communal homes. So it is a cult. They collected deeply sensitive and personal information about them, which the defendants used to render the One Taste members emotionally, socially, and psychologically dependent on them. They isolated the members from their support networks. They broke up established relationships. Again, very cult-like activity. It sounds like it. As part of the ideology, Dadone and Sherwitz instructed One Taste members to engage in sexual acts, including acts the members found uncomfortable or repulsive, as a requirement to supposedly obtain freedom and enlightenment and demonstrate their commitment. So be committed to the cause, do this really salacious thing, and now we kind of have blackmail material on you, and you're not going to want to leave the cult. So upon securing the allegiance of these members, or their coercion, we'll say, through these tactics, Dadone and Sherwitz engaged in abusive employment practices on top of that. They promised to pay the people who became part of the organization wages and commissions for the work, and then they subsequently failed to do that. They didn't pay them for doing these things. They changed their employment statuses in order to augment the compensation that they had promised to give. Dadone and Sherwitz also recruited and groomed One Taste members to engage in sexual acts with current and prospective investors, clients, and employees and beneficiaries. So it sounds like these two gals here essentially set up a cult under the umbrella of being a business about healing. And like, it's a family-friendly show for the most part here. I think that they were having women who were claiming to have been victims of sexual violence or some sort of trauma engage in some pretty awful things. And in fact, even selling it, like you can be liberated from your trauma through orgasm, right? Like this doesn't sound like the type of business that someone with a biblical worldview would be, I don't know, going and commonly seeking that services.
Yes, much less diving into extra debt over it. My curiosity is piqued here, though. I want more details. What is going on with this? But
Well,
also, right off the bat, it doesn't strike me. It strikes me as a bunch of weirdos, basically duping other weirdos into their sex cult.
and I'm starting to look at it from 30,000 foot view and saying, we don't like this. So let's find a crime, right? Like they're weirdos. There's no question about that. But are they really doing anything illegal? I mean, they're doing hard sell tactics. Well, can we maybe like reinterpret that to see if it's a crime? And then ultimately they settled on like slavery. Like you were coercing these people and then changing their wages so we can finagle and jam that square peg into this round hole so we can charge you with a crime to basically bring down this organization. Now, the reason that this came to the attention of the FBI, it wasn't like a whistleblower or a victim came forward. And this is another element of this, which makes it super weird and so also super spicy. There was a Netflix documentary about One Taste. Now, as an aside, as a personal anecdote, I investigated child pornography cases. It was recommended to me to at one point watch a documentary on Netflix that
Really?
pertained to young ladies getting kind of like roped into child pornography. And I remember kind of like clearing this with the approval, like the tower. I call it the wife and was like, "Hey, I'm gonna watch this documentary, and the thumbnail does not look good. Like you're gonna see that in the queue. It's actual research, right?" So this eluded my attention for those types of reasons. It was not on my radar, but reported in Revolver about how the FBI actually came to investigate this case and actually do so improperly. It's entitled Netflix, the FBI, and a federal frame job that took down a wellness company. A wellness company is, I don't know, maybe an overly broad descriptor, but
Yeah.
nevertheless, let's dig in. One Taste was an unconventional wellness startup out of California, of course, built around orgasm centered meditation as a path to healing and deeper human connection. The business was thriving. Oh, I wonder why. Until Bloomberg published a hit piece in 2018, cashing in on the peak Me Too hysteria. After that, the exodus began. In the now familiar Me Too cycle, some former members came forward years later claiming they'd been manipulated, sexually exploited, and financially drained.
Typical of most cults.
That was all the federal government needed to start building its case against One Taste. But all the people involved in One Taste were consenting adults. They knew they were signing up for, they paid for the training, showed up willingly, took part in the experience by choice. No one was forced, no one was coerced, no one had a gun to their head. So that presents a problem to a law enforcement agency when you have to find a crime. Now, an individual that the FBI hung their hat on, her name was Iris Blanc, and Miss Blanc or Blank or whatever, she'll have to forgive me for mispronouncing her name, but you will see why I don't feel that bad for Iris Blanc. She appeared front and center in the Netflix docuseries. It was called Orgasm Inc., which is probably why I didn't want to clear that one with the tower.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, want to watch Orgasm Inc?
It's research.
Yeah.
It's for work.
Netflix and chill.
She was playing the victim and pushing what we know now were some highly fabricated claims of abuse. She submitted a set of journals that she claimed to have written in 2015. But in these 2015 journals, she references reading a book which wasn't published until 2019.
Oh, well, that's a clue.
Star witness, right? According to court records, they were actually created in 2022 during the production of the Netflix series. So she kind of backfilled in order to provide Netflix with this stuff. And look, a lot of these documentaries are fictional. I mean, how devastated were you to find out that Pumping Iron, which essentially was like every dude's reason to go to the gym, was completely staged?
Yeah.
And sorry, spoiler alert, guys, Arnold Schwarzenegger was not actually doing that. It was kind of, it was done for fun and it was entertaining, but that wasn't really an authentic documentary. And I think a lot of these series on Netflix are sort of following that similar vein. The federal agent in charge, and we have a name, Special Agent Elliot McGinnis of the New York field office, didn't just accept the fake journals, he helped edit them.
Dude.
Reporting from Revolver
Okay.
News.
Okay, Steve. Can I just stop you right there for a minute?
Yeah.
Does this guy still have his job? That's all I want to know. And you probably don't know the answer, but we're going to assume that the answer is yes. So now you have an FBI agent basically coaching a witness, editing these fraudulent diaries so he can build his case. So he can build his career case, as they like to call it over there. And what happened to him? Does it say?
It doesn't. It does not say, sir. So We'll have to throw it up again. Revolver News. It doesn't say what the fate is of Elliot McGinnis of the New York field office. He helped edit these journals that were used for the Netflix documentary, and then also laundered into the FBI and the Department of Justice. And further, he was actively involved in shaping the materials days before the DOJ filed charges against One Taste co-founders Dadon and Sherwitz. Emails obtained by the defense show that McGinnis communicated with government star witness regarding the editing of the journal entries. They actually have the receipts, the emails between the agent and the star witness when they're going back and forth editing journals that they were claiming had been written 8 years prior.
Dude.
Eventually, prosecutors admitted the truth in court. The journals were fake, the witness had lied, and the FBI knew. They quietly pulled Blanc and tainted evidence from the case, but it was too late. Why is it too late? Because this is still going to court. They didn't drop charges, reporting from the New York Times, at one time a newspaper. Key evidence thrown out in a jolt to orgasmic meditation conspiracy case. That's excellent headline from the New York Times. So Blanc, the key witness on her time about her time at One Taste and her journals, memorialized 2022 Netflix documentary. It painted a dark picture of a sexually coercive workplace where the workers were manipulated and mistreated. 5 months after the documentary was released, the co-founders were indicted. Now, here's the quote. The government no longer believes that the disputed portions of the handwritten journals are authentic, prosecutors wrote to the judge. The diaries, they said, were actually transcribed by hand years later, and they will no longer call their star witness as a witness or seek to admit any of the journals at trial. So all the evidence is going to be out, and they haven't dismissed the case.
Dude, okay. Man, Steve, it's a Thursday. I didn't anticipate on getting particularly riled up this early in the morning. I'm having trouble over here containing my rage at this because this is antithetical to everything a law enforcement officer is supposed to do. And in that bucket, so not just the investigator, not just the law enforcement officer himself, the gun-toting, badge-wearing, star of the show, at least in our former renditions of our lives. That's how we approached it. You're the gun toter, you're the one with your boots on the ground doing the work, doing the heavy lifting. But let's include the AUSA, the judge, the witness, because now we also are treading into Ninth Commandment territory here with bearing false witness. You're writing fraudulent journals. That's false witness, regardless of if this sex cult is a bad business model or whatever you want to call it. You don't just get to bear false witness. And now you have the FBI agent participating in it. And because we live in an age where the internet is a thing, I just Googled the dude's name. And here we go. FBI Special Agent Elliot McGinnis, under fire, immolation almost certain. But the guy's still there. So this is from February of this year. And there's more out there because there was a Wikipedia page, but when you click on it, the information for him is gone. So I might have to dig a little bit later. But look at this. Okay, who's this defense counsel Jennifer Bonjean is what this article they tap into her for a lot of this. But look at what she says right here. We think that if the Department of Justice looks at this case closely, and we hope they are, that this is exactly the type of case where you have extraordinary FBI misconduct. Well, Steve, what do you have to say about FBI misconduct? And she goes on. I don't say that lightly, but this is the case. This is, they're quoting her directly. This is the case that they should be looking at, and particularly on this specific administration that seems to have such interest in looking at what the FBI has done systemically. Well, we thought they had interest in that, but here you have two whistleblowers who are still doing a podcast. She goes on, let's see here. So, Agent Elliot McGinnis, who was the lead FBI investigator in this case, we believe and have shown and demonstrated to the court, and it is on public record that he is engaged in a series of misconduct, not just as it relates to these journals. This is the same FBI agent who obtained attorney-client privilege materials and created an investigation around it. It's the same agent who instructed Aries Blanc, or however you say it, or directed her to delete an entire email account that had exculpatory material in it. We've covered this before. Exculpatory material is information that you may come across in your case that exonerates your subject or points to their innocence. And it is incumbent on the law enforcement officer to include that information, just as it is incumbent on the prosecuting attorney, whether it's the district attorney, the assistant district attorney, the assistant United States attorney, even all the way up to the United States attorney for whatever district. You're supposed to not just provide exculpatory information to the person you're targeting, but also if it goes to trial, you're supposed to provide it there. So here now he's directing the quote unquote star witness to delete exculpatory material. It's the exact opposite of what you're supposed to do.
It's what you're supposed to do if you're interested in the process, the due process. If you come across exculpatory information, you shouldn't be like, damn it. It just is what it is. It's not your job
Right.
to ascribe guilt or innocence
Right.
to a person. But that's not what's going on here. And look, I will go back to my comparison, the Bill Cosby example, because the same sort of standard should apply here as it did to Bill Cosby. Bill Cosby sexually abused numerous women. He drugged them and raped them. And Bill Cosby was pulled into a private meeting with a prosecutor on a civil case. And the prosecutor at that point said, if you tell me what happened, I will not use it against you. And Bill Cosby spilled the beans. And then the prosecutor reneged on that and went and used what he told them against him to put him in prison. And you know what? Bill Cosby walked free because the government was interested in the outcome and not the process. And as a result, there were multiple women who did not get justice, and the fault lays at the government for that. It doesn't matter what these women did or did not do at this point. The entire well is tainted. And guess what? They get a walk. They get to go free, even if there are actual true victims here. And that sucks for those victims. But you know whose fault it is? Agent McGinnis and the prosecutors in the Eastern District of New York, because they were interested in the outcome and they were interested in the headlines. And the only reason they were interested to begin with was because it was a Netflix series. Yeah. Every single one of these people needs to be removed. However you need to do it. You need to pull their security clearance. You need to just fire them, whatever it is. These are people who used and abused their positions to personally enrich themselves. And that is a position where you cannot be in a position of civic trust when you allegedly pick up your arm and swear an oath to defend the Constitution. Like, this is a joke. All of these people should be fired and prosecuted.
Yeah.
For conspiracy. You want to talk about a conspiracy? This is a conspiracy against rights.
Right. From the government. Where's the public corruption agent or squad working against this McGinnis guy? Steve, this really angers me very deeply because of the oath we took, because of the truth-seeking nature that we presumed everybody in our former position had. It's because of what we've been told since November 5th. Well, even going back further than that. We're going to change it. We're going to change the DOJ. We're going to change the FBI. Why is this case still on the docket? Why is Mr. McGinnis still an FBI agent? He should have been walked out along with Jim Dennehy when he retired and got his ticker tape parade outside of the New York field office. This is a freaking joke, dude. It's a travesty too. I want to go back to this McGinnis piece with the defense counsel real quick, because it gets worse. There's more. And look, we're just doing this on the fly. So, dude, this is just, I'm pissed off. I'm sure you can tell that I'm freaking pissed. Okay. It goes on. It's the same FBI agent that told witnesses, hey, send me this discovery in this civil case so you don't have to produce it there. Okay. It's the same agent who, and I'm not going to name names here, who tried to convince people that they were victims. Not the job of law enforcement. It's not your job to convince someone that they're a victim. It's not your job to convince someone that they should bring some type of complaint or say, yeah, I think I am a victim of this crime. Not your job. It's their job to decide if they want to make a police report or contact the FBI or whatever. And it goes on. That's not what happened. You have it all wrong. And like, what you need to speak to some witnesses. Some expert is going to persuade you're a victim. There's a range of misconduct. Oh, and we also know, and I will say this as an important piece the media should be covering, is that some of these witnesses are getting paid, which tells you what, Steve, they're probably a CHS. And I don't say that lightly. They get it through alleged restitution. Okay, restitution. At least one, maybe more, have already been paid $30,000 for reimbursement for therapy. That's a lot of money. And this is paid by New York State Victim Services, but through the apparatus of the federal government. And what I said to the judge today, so this is back from February, when she, in that tense, she thought that maybe my language was too harsh, but I don't take that lightly. I would not accuse the prosecutor or even at the law enforcement of misconduct unless I had the goods. And as for McGinnis, we have the goods. There is a record, and yes, absolutely, it should be investigated for criminal misconduct, as you said, and it should. If this is what he did, I'm sorry, there isn't an exception. She's absolutely right. There is not an exception. FBI agent exception to obstruction of justice. There's no exception for that. The government has said they're not going to call him as a witness, but we're going to call him. We're going to call him. But in what case does the government say, hey, we're not going to call our lead agent? I know what case. Dude, this is so beyond the pale, Steve, for you and me to be sitting here still after everything we've been through, after showing our integrity, demonstrating our integrity, losing our anonymity, testifying in front of Congress, and this McGinnis guy he's just off the hook, at least apparently. For now, he's still collecting a paycheck. He's still a gun-toting, badge-wearing FBI agent who has tainted. He has tainted the badge. He has tainted the divine duty. And then on top of this too, and this is long-standing historically, the law is not the sword. The law is the shield. The law is supposed to be used to shield people from wrongdoing. It's not supposed to be wielded like a sword from the government to include all sorts of lies and misconduct so you can get your win, so you can get your career case because there's a Netflix documentary. It's completely backwards. This is a great find, Steve. I've never heard, I think I've heard of one case. You mentioned it briefly, and I thought, I think I heard of that. But man, when you start peeling back the layers of this onion, what a joke.
Your reference to the law. I mean, Harvey Silverglate, 3 felonies a day. He asked that question: why do we have laws? Do we have laws to ensure we have a civil society and that there's a mechanism to protect the innocent against the violent, to protect the innocent citizen against fraud and force, and ensure a modicum of justice? Or is it just another opportunity? Is it another arrow in the quiver of the government to go after people? And they're looking for new and novel interpretations of those laws and saying, you're getting close to the line there. Let me reinterpret the way that this law is written so that the line is now behind you. So you've been violative of it, instead of saying, hey, you're getting close to the line. You know what that's called? Inbounds, legal.
Right.
So there's nothing else to do here. And this is a public corruption, and you're a public corruption endeavoring person, right? You want to talk about career case. You want to bring down the Eastern District of New York and the New York field office. That's where we should go. And look, we'll come off of it and talk about public corruption in another context, which I teased at the outset. And this is just a quick video clip. Elon Musk revealing a thing about federal workers getting paid.
We've actually found there's a lot of people who are federal government employees, they're active employees who nonetheless applied for and have received unemployment insurance.
While they're federal employees?
Yes.
Wow.
And this appears to be at least 100,000 people.
Wow.
We've actually
100,000
dude
federal employees currently getting paid.
You can't hate your government enough.
The level of public corruption involved there. I mean, everybody's worried about the Epstein list, and we're rounding up 200 child predators. 100,000. I mean, you'd be busy for a career or 3.
Yep. To root out all of that type of fraud. And okay, if you're getting unemployment benefits, you applied for those. There's your mens rea right there. And and your actus reus. So you've got your guilty mind, your mens rea, and your guilty act, actus reus. You've got both. And to think of how easy that would be too, Steve, because it's
It's
all
paper
documented.
trail.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and theoretically, so many of these employees would have to like turn over during their disclosure processes, and that would be further beyond fraud. They would have lied on federal documents. You could block them up forever if you wanted to, but it's just not
Oh,
really of interest right now.
and along the lines of Doge, didn't they just kind of disregard some vote that was supposed to go towards?
Now you're spoiling Saturday's show,
Oh,
Garrett.
sorry, Steve.
Yeah, no, I
All
will
right,
get to that on
we'll
Saturday.
hold
Yeah,
that.
basically all the Doge stuff. They just like Congress was like, yeah, we're going to vote on not rescinding that spending, but we're just not going to do it because we got other things going on here. But we're based now. That's how
Yeah.
we're doing it. All right, another public corruption matter. And this is actually a good one. This comes from the USDA. Maybe they're hiring investigators. Certainly, they're going to have their work cut out for them. So this is an actual press release from the USDA. They participate in a targeted SNAP benefit fraud operation. They announced the operation in a press release as the USDA Special Investigations Unit. You think they have guns? Worked with local law enforcement to identify. So look, they worked with local law enforcement to identify criminals stealing SNAP benefits. SNAP, it means Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. It's food stamps. According to the press release, SNAP theft on EBT cards, because we don't make people carry Monopoly money. Maybe we should, because a little bit of shame would probably go a long way.
Yeah,
Has
just go through
quote
the self checkout. Here's your card. Don't no nobody will even know anymore, Steve.
So the theft of these cards has dramatically increased in recent years because they're actually using like card skimmers. But I don't think that that's really the driving factor behind it. I think that people like take their SNAP benefits and wind up selling them, right? Um,
That's been
and
my experience. I've
do you want
I've
to kind of break that down as a local cop? Because again,
mm,
we work with local law
mhm.
enforcement here to know this. How do people sell their SNAP, and why would they?
Because they've got too much. So they don't need it. Let's say they got $100 left and they're like, I got my groceries, I got everything taken care of for the rest of the month. I got $100 on here. I know. I'll sell it for 50. I'll give you my SNAP benefits, and you give me $50 cash, and you get 100 to buy whatever tomahawk steaks or shrimp or whatever you want to load up on, and you're basically getting it at half price then. And that was how I always saw it. And the mechanism was a little different when I was a cop. I don't remember exactly how it worked, and I don't know how it would work today.
Yeah,
You
they
just
would do
give
that
them your
because there's
card.
restrictions on what you can use the food stamps for. Like, hey, is $100 in food stamps good for me if I can't use it to buy liquor? So
Yeah,
I'd rather have the $50 cash and go and buy porn and liquor
right.
because I'm a degenerate of some kind. And the other element of it was the candy lady. We always would see when I worked as a beat cop down in the hood, and you would see the sign up on the telephone pole, candy lady. She was selling thrills, as they're calling. Those are ices
Mm.
and candy. She would basically take the SNAP benefits, sell them with the cash, then go to the store and buy all like the sugary stuff, and then sell it out of her house at a profit.
Mm.
That's food stamp fraud,
Yep.
and she was advertising it. So it wasn't really enforced that heavily. All right. And, on the subject of some local cop work, let's talk about a couple of ones that are a little bit disturbing. This one, local news, Fox 5, an 18-year-old was shot and killed by Spotsylvania County homeowner while reportedly trying to break in. But that headline isn't necessarily revealing of what's going on here, because it seems like, all right, 18-year-old trying to break in, homeowner castle doctrine. But there's more going on here that meets the eye on this headline, because authorities are deciding whether or not to charge this homeowner with murder. Authorities in Spotsylvania County say they're still deciding whether to charge Fredericksburg area homeowner in the fatal weekend shooting of a teenager. Investigators say the 18-year-old was one of 3 teens breaking into his house. Young man shot and killed was named Michael Bosworth. And then they talked about how he played lacrosse and football. I'm sure we'll get an 8th grade graduation.
Yes. Yeah.
Officials with the Spotsylvania County Sheriff's Office say Bosworth and 2 juveniles were in the backyard of the home around 3 o'clock in the morning trying to break into the house. And they were confronted by the homeowner. And this 18-year-old, he's not a kid, he's an adult. He was shot and killed. One of the other boys was also wounded. Neighbors heard as many as 8 gunshots, and you don't know. Neighbors say they heard multiple gunshots. They say 8. That could be a little bit elevated. We don't know. Um, and that the teens were claiming that they were just trying to do a ding and ditch for TikTok challenge, like ring the doorbell and run, except they were in the backyard. So I don't think.
Yeah, not buying that story.
That's the price of doing business, from my concern. I think the sheriff should just step forward and say, like, nope, nope, don't be out at 3 o'clock in the morning trying to break into people's houses.
Right.
You got dead. Let that be a cautionary tale to others.
Yeah. And if you're going to be doing ding dong ditch, what do you do? You're not doing that at 3 a.m.
They're home.
Yeah.
And sleeping. Like, they're
Right.
not going to answer they're not going to answer the bell. Like 3 o'clock in the morning, they probably presumed that they weren't home. They were going to break in and steal whatever, and then get off scot free. And this guy came down, as I think you would, as I would. I have a family that I have to protect, and I'm going to go off the DOJ's use of deadly force policy.
100%.
You can use deadly force when you perceive that there is an imminent threat of death or serious bodily injury to you or some other person. Somebody's breaking into my house at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yep.
I'm going to presume that they want to do me harm because they know I'm home then.
Right. Yep. Absolutely. I mean, I don't know in what world it wouldn't be justified. So sorry, play stupid games, win stupid prizes, as they say.
All right, let's go back to Revolver News. Second one today. And Luigi Mangione, the assassin.
Oh,
He might go free, Garrett.
he should have been a plumber.
Man. Justin, female cop may be the reason Luigi Mangione goes
How about that, Steve?
free.
Let me guess, Steve. Let me just take a stab at this real quick. Some sort of procedural error, some sort of not including exculpatory information or not handling evidence correctly, something along those lines.
Nailed it.
How about that?
This is according to Mangione's attorneys, who I guess are not unbiased here. But Mangione's backpack was illegally searched right after
Oh.
police found him at the McDonald's in Pennsylvania. Now they're demanding everything inside be tossed from the case.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if the judge agrees, the case could fall apart, and one of the most high-profile murder trials in recent memory could blow up entirely.
It's fruit of the poisonous tree. That's what this is. That I think we've talked about that here before. It's a legal doctrine, and there's Supreme Court case law backing it up. The government is supposed to do it the right way. That's what this boils down to. Again. And this guy who murdered somebody in broad daylight, but in an alleged land of the free, a fruit of the poisonous tree doctrine is a good thing. The government doesn't. We have a Bill of Rights for a reason. You have a Fourth Amendment right for a reason. They don't just get to wantonly search.
It's supposed to be hard to do law enforcement. And like, this is, again, like one of the most unsympathetic cases for somebody who we know he did it.
Right.
But you still have to follow the process.
Yep.
And
it's hard to be the good guy. It's not easy. It's not supposed to be. It never was.
If he walks, can you imagine?
Dude.
He'll be elected senator somewhere.
Dude,
he will be a champion. There will be statues in his honor.
He'll be like the next. They'll start a whole news show along the lines of The Bachelor, and it'll be him. And
I didn't even think of that. Oh man, he could get like his own One Taste docuseries.
Yes.
Awesome.
Where's Agent McGinnis when you need him?
All right, another local one, and this one is really sad. Reporting from Cincinnati, the Inquirer. Who are the Hintons? What we know about a man charged with killing a Hamilton County deputy. And the background for this one is and the reason it came out on my radar was the FBI social media page paid homage to this fallen deputy. And it is incredibly sad. Rodney Hinton Jr. is our subject. He struck the deputy with his car a couple days ago, May 2nd, because the deputy was directing traffic outside of the graduation ceremony at the University of Cincinnati. And the reason that Rodney felt obliged to go and run down this deputy was that a Cincinnati police officer, a member of a different agency, shot and killed Rodney's 18-year-old son a few days earlier, the day before, actually. So he went to try to take revenge for this. He just gunned down his 18-year-old in the street, right? I mean, it wasn't like the son was running with a firearm and pointing it at the police officers when he was shot, as evidenced by the body camera footage. So now, we can go into another summer of love, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so this dad kills a cop who's entirely unrelated to the incident with his son. His son clearly engaging in criminal activity and pointing a gun at police officers gets deadly force used against him properly, and now the dad goes and kills a cop. I mean, Steve, how do you fix it, man? I mean, I know the answer. We have to go to the cross. We have to turn to Christ, but things are getting worse. Society is devolving right before our eyes.
And
Mega though, dude. We got Trump, so we're good.
This guy, Rodney Hinton, I mean, he's one of the most sympathetic guys ever. Apparently, he's like on social media about like hating the cops and stuff. But I did get a video, and let me know if this guy presents a sympathetic figure. But look, we built statues to George Floyd with him drinking a 40 on a bench with a wife beater on. So when have they ever needed a sympathetic figure? This was the court hearing of one Rodney Hinton Jr. Give it a play.
You'll return him on Tuesday, May the 6th at 8:30 a.m. for a hearing at 9 o'clock in the morning?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you.
Your Honor, for the record, we'd ask the court to put a bond on him now, but we understand that it's not a bond hearing is request.
All right, no bond.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Watch as he walks out what he does for those viewing, and look at the face of this man as he looks at the other police officers, and show me that there's regret there.
I mean, this is where you need to bring back public hangings and do it right in this city square. What other option do you have for a guy like that? That pride, that hubris, that mean mug, the chin tilt up, and then whatever he's saying to him too.
Yeah. I mean, is a spontaneous utterance. Hopefully that gets used in court against him.
Yeah. And look, we've covered it already here today. We will be the first to call out law enforcement when they are in the wrong. 100% we will. At the same time, look at our background. We understand and know the tumultuous life, especially of the real police. They're not all bad. Some are, sure, like this McGinnis guy we talked about. But by and large, cops aren't getting up in the morning and thinking, who am I going to get to go kill today? That's not what happens. Yes, sometimes there is corruption. And I mean, look, I watch like Lackluster and all these YouTube channels that will cover malfeasance from police. And the rabbit holes, I mean, every single time I'm just sitting there shaking my head like, I can't believe that this is happening in law enforcement in America. Don't get me wrong. There is plenty of it out there. There is also plenty of good. And most of the people in law enforcement, or at least in my experience, many of them, they're not out there with some sort of mean-spirited heart and to purposely do what is wrong. That's just not the case. And somebody like that, man, I'm telling you, tar and feather, public hanging, I think that's the point we got to go back to.
I mean, the fallen officer wasn't involved in anything that prior day. It was just a guy wearing a uniform. He was doing traffic,
right? I mean, come on.
He was doing traffic outside of a graduation ceremony. Now, look, I'm going to speculate, but I'm pretty confident this was probably an off-duty assignment. He was trying to make a little bit extra money. He left home, said bye to the wife, and said, like, I have an opportunity to go make, maybe double my normal wage here for a few hours, and I'll see you this afternoon.
Yeah.
And he didn't come home.
Yep, that's it. I would do that type of thing all the time. Like
all the time.
Whenever we had, my last official duty was a parade. It was the July 4th parade, and it was overtime. I signed up for it because time and a half is good money if you can get it. And so especially when I was working third shift, because you'd start getting ready for the parades in the morning or whatever. I pick up 4 hours of OT. Why not? It's easy. Doing traffic control, hanging out at the parade, similar to like a graduation ceremony like this guy. And now he doesn't come home because some unhinged lunatic whose son got killed because his son was a criminal and was engaging in activity that rose to the level of deadly force being properly used. We talk about it all the time, Steve. Romans 13, the government does not bear the sword in vain. There's supposed to be a deacon for your good, a servant for your good. That's precisely what was happening here. They were being a servant for your good. Whether it was the initial incident with Hinton's son, your cops are chasing down a violent criminal. He points a gun at them. The criminal gets shot. That is the government being a servant for your good. Then this cop directing traffic at a graduation ceremony, minor. It's a minor role, a minor duty, but he's being a servant for your good. How much more of a servant can you be than blowing your whistle, directing traffic? You stop, you go.
Dude, that's miserable. That is miserable. And I mean, I guess maybe Cincinnati's not as hot, but directing traffic,
in the
if
heat.
there's this traffic light out,
Yep.
oh man,
You got your
I mean,
vest, your belt,
brutal.
the sun just beating down.
If you got patent leather shoes on, your toes are melting.
If you're in an agency that makes you wear a hat, good luck.
Mhm. All right, let's pivot over off of the law enforcement angle and tease this to a bizarre story. And I have a strong belief that this will be the first of several stories along this line on this particular individual, who's my congressman, Representative Cory Mills, who does have some stolen valor issues that have now come out recently. But now there's more revelations reporting from the Blaze about GOP Representative Cory Mills. He explains why he was married by a radical Islamic cleric.
What?
Bizarre. So we have to do a little bit of background. This is a little bit of a long piece. It has multiple facets, but we do that here on the American Radicals podcast. So a couple months ago, February, DC Metro Police answered a domestic disturbance call at Cory Mills' luxury penthouse. The police report states that Sarah Raviani told police that her, quote, significant other for over a year had grabbed her, shoved her, pushed her out the door. So it sounds like a domestic abuse situation you would respond to as a beat cop. The significant other happens to be, in this case, Congressman Cory Mills. Now, Ms. Raviani later contacted police and retracted her statements, including the source of the bruising, and they subsequently denied any wrongdoing, and Cory Mills was never charged. Now, I've got a little bit of inside knowledge here. It does not appear he was actually the aggressor. She actually was doing things to him. So be that as it may, that's how he originally, Cory Mills, gets on the radar of the Blaze. Do some further digging into his background and things that are really disturbing, because he has his girlfriend, Sarah Raviani, but he's married.
Yeah, okay, that's what I was like, wait a second, what's going on here? Because it mentions Islamic cleric wedding and now girlfriend. What?
Yes. So he is in the process, it's been multiple years, of divorcing his current wife, Rana Al-Sayadi.
Oh boy.
And forgive me if I'm mispronouncing that.
Was she like an interpreter that he met in Iraq or something?
You're going to find out her background here, Garrett, in a minute. So she's a naturalized American citizen from Iraq. Now, the Blaze verified the marriage certificate, and it cites that the officiant is a guy whose name is Mohammed Al-Hanuti, former imam of the Dar al-Harjaj Islamic Center. Again, I'm butchering it, I'm sorry. This is Islamic Center, this mosque, is one of the most extremist mosques in America. Okay, Anwar al-Awlaki was the imam at this mosque.
What the hell, Steve?
Okay, for those who don't know, al-Awlaki, he was the one that Obama droned. That's how bad he was. Okay, he was linked to the Fort Hood shooting. Right, he radicalized Major Hassan. He radicalized the underwear bomber. 2 of the 9/11 hijackers attended this mosque. Okay,
and Cory Mills got married there.
Well, al-Awlaki is dead now. So let's talk about the guy who actually officiated his wedding, whose name is Mohammed Al-Hanuti. He officiated Mills' wedding in 2014. He's best known for being an unindicted co-conspirator of the 2008 Holy Land Foundation Hamas financing trial and the 1993 World Trade Center bombing.
So, oh, good grief. So he's connected to all sorts of stuff.
Oh gosh. So at least one associate of Cory Mills, speaking on condition of background for fear of reprisal, told the Blaze that Mills became a practicing Muslim before marrying Al Saidi.
What?
Which is interesting because he has all these Catholic tattoos and stuff on his arms. So shortly after marrying in 2014, Cory Mills and Al Saidi started, now we're going to pivot. He could be a secret Muslim. I mean, look, there are Muslim members of Congress. One of them is Ilhan Omar, who married her brother. She's got other marriage issues. Okay? So let's pivot over to something else that was of concern.
Oh, I got to give a shout out to the chat real quick. We got Renzo Rants with Durka Durka Center. Love it. And we got Ped Weirdo with Aloha Snack Bar, one of my all-time favorites. You guys are the best. Durka Durka, Muhammad Jihad. Aloha Snack Bar.
America. Bleep. Yeah. We got our obligatory movie reference, Team America.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Now, let's pivot over to something else that's other than the religious angle. Now, because Cory Mills claimed that he got married to her because she had to go to Iraq, and they were going to claim that she was divorced and she could be in trouble. And, he gave some sort of explanation. So this is different, though. So after they got married, Mills and Al Saidi started two companies, a defense consulting and a munition manufacturing company, and they acquired a less lethal military law enforcement equipment manufacturer. The business has made him more money than they could ever spend, according to him.
Yeah.
And then that propelled him to run for Congress because now, he's made his money and he wants to be a public servant.
Maybe we need to do something like that, Steve. Stick a
Anybody
pin
in
the podcast and get into less lethal munitions.
I want to sell pepper balls. That'd be fun. Okay. Now, the information that you asked for before, Garrett, we finally get it. On the wife, the Miss Mills, her name is still Al Saidi. She worked as a cultural advisor for the U.S. State Department. She was a translator for the DoD in the Green Zone and assisted U.S. intelligence during the invasion of Iraq. According to the Arlington Catholic Herald, she claimed to have lived in a 10-bedroom house in Iraq, and her family is very well connected in political leadership in Iraq. So she comes from quite a background. The year after their company, which they formed, which is called PACEM, P-A-C-E-M, the company secured a $228 million arms deal with Iraq.
Dang.
Mills also serves on the Armed Services and Foreign Affairs Committee, which might be a conflict with you selling munitions to Iraq, okay? He claimed, we still own 100% of the company, but I divested myself and put it into a blind trust.
Sure.
But when questioned by the Blaze on this news report, he said, quote, I believe I'm in a blind trust, okay?
I believe I am.
I think I've divested from the company. I think I'm in a blind trust.
Can we get a trustworthy FBI agent to ask him some questions? Because
get Agent McGinnis on this case.
Yeah. Fly him down. Get him on the FBI's jet. Fly him down.
Further, he said, I'd have to go back and look. I couldn't honestly tell you. We're talking something that happened, 4 years ago.
Dude,
where were you 4 years ago?
This is so shady. What in the world? What type of Twilight Zone are we living in, Steve?
But wait, Garrett.
There's more. I wish this was a WAPO article so you could say democracy dies in darkness.
No, unfortunately, it is a legitimate, reputable news source of the Blaze. In 2025, this year, Cory Mills visited Kuwait over New Year's and met with Iraqi Prime Minister. And he went to Dubai over Valentine's Day and Syria and Turkey over Easter. So he says he's going on vacation for the holidays. But when he went to over Valentine's Day to, which one was it? To Dubai, there were 200,000 attendees of the world's largest biannual weapons expo.
I'm divested, bro. Trust me. Trust me, bro. 6 to 8 months, I'll be divested. I promise.
628 months, probably more likely. Biggest question, bottom line takeaway is, does Steve Friend need to declare his candidacy for Congress in my district?
So. How do we get you some fundraising to go?
Could have a vacancy coming up here. All right. I've got one more, and it's a fun one because today was a pretty dark one. But
I was nearly unhinged today, Steve. I was close.
Well, I mean, you're struggling. You're 32, 628 months unpaid, indefinitely suspended. Have you considered playing the lottery, Powerball?
I've thought
Okay,
about it.
because if you do, you might come away with a hefty chunk of change, as our subject is here. But if you do win the lottery, do not then fight the police.
Oh gosh.
Kentucky Powerball winner and his girlfriend were arrested in Florida with a brawl involving the police. You can take the
What?
hillbilly you can't take the hillbilly out of the hillbilly, even when you win the lottery.
Were they at the Kentucky Derby? Oh, they were arrested.
No, they're in Florida. They were on
Florida.
vacation.
Wait. Were they at Floribama by chance?
No, it was too recent.
Oh.
James Farthing. He's 50 years old. He was arrested St. Pete for kicking a police officer in the face.
Don't do that.
According to court affidavits, he and his girlfriend were both taken into custody following a fight at this resort. Records show that Farthing allegedly punched a hotel guest in the face and kicked a deputy in the face during the fight. Don't skip leg day.
Yeah. Just because you win the Powerball doesn't mean that you can just do whatever you want. Now you're gonna have to pay for attorneys.
He tried to run, and that didn't go well for him. He didn't make it very far.
Don't run from the police.
He was charged with felony battery on law enforcement officer, 2 misdemeanors, including battery and resisting an officer. Farthing remains in jail. He's being held without bond, but jail records indicate he has $295 in his commissary account, so that's good.
How much was the winnings?
It was a record for the state of Kentucky, $167.3 million.
Bro. I mean,
it's all going to attorneys.
Yep. Hey man, like you said, you can't take the, what'd you say, hillbilly out of Kentucky?
You can take the hillbilly out of the mountains, but you can't take the mountains out of the hillbilly. I don't know, man. What could have been? It's a palate cleanse-esque type of story. I do have a fun palate cleanse though. But Garrett, as always, want you to give us your takeaway and your worldview for the day.
Yes, sir. We're sticking in 1 John here. 1 John chapter 2, verses 15 through 17. Do not love the world or the things in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world, the desires of the flesh and the desires of the eyes and the pride of life, is not from the Father, but is from the world. And the world is passing away along with its desires, but whoever does the will of God abides forever.
We have to separate these two. When we say cravings and lust and boastings, we have to recognize that we're talking about this third world and not the first two. For example, in that first world, I can love the beauty of a sunset. I can love the beauty of a perfectly cooked steak. Sorry. I can I can love the beauty of music, art. Again, those things in this world that God has made. I can and I must love the people whom God has created in this world. But the kind of love that I have for those things is a love that arises from God himself. But even those loves can be perverted. And so now, instead of me loving the beauty of a sunset or a beauty of God's created order, now I worship God's created order. I worship the creature rather than the creator. Rather than loving the beauty of those things that God has given us, now all of a sudden those things become means to an end, to satisfying myself, to gratifying my flesh. to quenching my lustful desires. That's when they've crossed a boundary.
And that's really what it boils down to, isn't it? Take any of the stories we covered today. It comes down to this perversion. It's a sinful perversion. We're all guilty of it to some degree. But you run over a cop because your son did something wrong. It's an abomination. It's a perversion of how you're supposed to be living. You corruptly run a case because you think it's going to make your name, it's going to propel your star inside the FBI, whatever. You lie about your marriage and your side chick and your cleric relations to some extremist false religion. You pick the story, and the root is this perversion that Pastor Vodi Bakum was talking about there. But we're going to stick with this a few more times. It's just so rich. There's just so much packed into these handful of verses, and I think he does a really great job of breaking it down. So we're going to stick with that one a few more times, and then I got something else in the hopper coming up next.
And today's palate cleanse, I mean, it's sort of inspired by the idea of winning the lottery. You hear like you're more likely to get struck by lightning on your way to buy the lottery ticket than actually winning it. I think the odds of this are actually worse. And that is, you'll have to watch it and then comment on a reload that happens at the range. And this guy's a lefty, so it was a man after my own heart.
No way that just happened.
That's life.
What?
Yes, the shell casing ejected when he went dry on the first magazine. He does a reload, and one of the shell casings lands on top of the magazine in perfect position, and it gets reloaded back into the pistol.
Dude, you couldn't do that if you tried.
You couldn't calculate the odds of that happening and having it on video.
Yeah. And even like how do you get it? How do you even get it all on video like that?
It ricocheted twice, and insane.
Crazy.
But, man, the internet is fun sometimes.
Yeah.
All right, guys, that's going to do it for us today. We'll be back with you Saturday, 10:30 here, rumble.com/amradpod. Till then, guys, have a great day.
You've been listening to the voice of the Suspendables on the American Radicals podcast. Follow us on rumble.com/amradpod.